Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Hope you're having a great week. I just got back from seeing Belle at the theater, so I wanted to share my thoughts and review with you. We'll start with a brief synopsis. Suzu is a shy, everyday high school student living in a rural village. For years, she has only been a shadow of herself. But when she enters You, a massive virtual world, she escapes into her online persona as Belle, a gorgeous and globally beloved singer. One day her concert is interrupted by a monstrous creature chased by vigilantes. As their hunt escalates, Suzu embarks on an emotional and epic quest to uncover the identity of this mysterious beast and to discover her true self in a world where you can be anyone. So this film debuted last year in 2021 at the Cannes Film Festival, but it wasn't released in the US, at least in theaters, until this weekend on January 14th, 2022. I hadn't heard of this film up until seeing what was playing this weekend, and but I looked it up and watched the trailer for it, and it looked interesting enough. So yeah, not really going into this anticipating much, but interested to check it out. So with that, we'll jump into my thoughts, and I have things kind of broken up into different categories, looking at the different aspects of what makes a movie, and then we'll end with just kind of my overall impression or thoughts of the film. So first off, we'll look at the story, and I thought the story for this felt a little familiar. It felt like a cross between Ready Player One and Beauty and the Beast, if I had to compare it to anything. I think it definitely has vibes from both of those, and certainly I think could be compared very much so to Beauty and the Beast, but it takes kind of a basic concept that's shared between the two and makes it its own. So I enjoyed the story. While it did come across as maybe a little derivative, I thought it was well put together and interesting. I thought the characters were written well, pretty relatable, at least I thought. And as far as the main character goes, and I thought the supporting characters were interesting in their own rights. I also thought the story brought up a few interesting thoughts, at least things that I was thinking about during the movie and a little bit after. Looks at or examines things like in an ideal society or a society that's running well, is law enforcement or rules and things like that. People who enforce the rules, is that necessary and good? It doesn't go too much into that, but it at least asks a question, which I found interesting. Another interesting thought was, if you see somebody in trouble, is it your responsibility to help at your own personal risk? And what does that mean for other people in your life if you do put yourself in risk to help others? So I thought, yeah, there's some interesting ideas that it presents, and I always appreciate that in a movie when they can get you thinking a bit. And emotionally, I think the characters are well written and to get you invested in them, so you care about them by the end of the movie. So I thought the story was well done. I thought the pacing was pretty good. It kept my interest in the entire movie. Um, yeah, so that covers the story. Looking at the production design, I thought it was. So this is an animated film, and looking at kind of the world that is created inside of the film, I thought they did a really good job. The virtual world of You is designed well and is very drastically different than the real world as far as contrast. So You feels very urban. It feels like a big city, but in the real world, the characters are in a fairly rural setting. But I thought that complemented each other. They a lot of times, or in some films, like say Ready Player One, you'll have if you have a virtual reality that people are going to the real world in contrast is very dull and gray and grim, and people are looking just for an escape from that. And they didn't really go that route in this. The real world is shown as very beautiful. It's very like you can see a lot of greenery and nature in the environment, and the so I think it's more circumstances that drive characters to want to go into the virtual environment and not necessarily just like the world as a whole. So I thought that was well done and interesting from other takes that I've seen doing a like virtual reality sort of theme in a movie. But I thought, yeah, both the virtual world and the real world were animated very well. I thought, that said though, I thought the virtual world seemed a little empty. It just seemed kind of like a virtual social media sort of thing, or social media platform. They say like come here to live an alternate self or your best self, something along those lines. But it didn't really, at least from what they show in the movie, it didn't seem like you could actually like live there. It seemed like you just went there to connect with other people and that sort of thing. So I think that was one part that was maybe a little bit lacking in the film. Next, we'll go into acting. I thought the acting was good. It was, yeah, all voice acting, obviously. But I guess what could maybe go into that is the animation for the characters' expressions and that sort of thing, if we're looking at that. But I thought it was pretty standard, nothing impressive and nothing lacking on either front. I thought they came across as very real characters. The next category for cinematography, I thought it was pretty good for an animated film. I think like what I enjoy about animation as opposed to live action is it's a lot easier to have kind of longer takes and yeah, kind of more sweeping shots. I mean, you get those in live action, but when you're in total control of what the viewer is seeing and you don't have the logistics of having actors in front of a camera and having to move a camera through real space, you can just do a bit more with animation. And I thought, yeah, so they certainly worked some of those into the movie, especially with, you know, some shots that are weaving through the environment in fun to see ways, I guess. But and then lastly, the sound of the movie I thought was pretty good, especially the music. So I would categorize this as, I think I'd categorize it as a musical. There's a few musical numbers throughout, and I thought I enjoyed all of them, all the original songs, and then the soundtrack, like the score itself, I thought was composed well and used a variety of different instruments. There's a couple pieces where heavily utilized the piano, which I love to hear in a soundtrack, being that I played the piano myself. But other ones used more of string sound, so it didn't feel very uniform throughout like some soundtracks do, but it fit the mood of each scene, and definitely one that I'll be looking up to listen to in the next week here. So yeah, so that's kind of the technical analysis, I'd say, of the film. So I think there's a lot of good that was done in just the production of the film, and overall though I really enjoyed the film. I think if I were to give it a rating on my personal enjoyment of it and how good of a film I think it is, I've got 4 categories for that. There's great, which is movies I'd highly recommend; good, which is movies I'd recommend; meh, which is kind of go either way, and then bad, which are movies that I'd recommend not seeing or that I found boring. So this one I would put in the good category. I think it's, yeah, I really enjoyed the story that it told and the message that it had to say. I thought it said it well and created characters that I could connect with. So it's I think very high on my good in the good category. I was thinking whether or not it's quite in the great category, and I don't think it quite makes that leap, but it was it was at least something that I considered. So I think it is in the good category for me, but close to the top. So definitely recommend and think it's worth the watch. Uh, Maybe, well, if it's like a different consideration, is it worth the watch in theaters? And I think it is. It's there's a lot of action and kind of big shots and that sort of thing. So I think it does benefit from the big screen. So I would recommend checking it out in theaters if you can, but if you can't, certainly check it out when it's streaming. That does it for my review for Belle. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss my next review. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.